On the night of December 8, 1980, outside the Dakota Apartments in New York City, the world lost one of its most influential cultural figures. John Lennon, former Beatle, songwriter, activist, and icon of peace, was gunned down at the age of 40. News of his death spread like wildfire, leaving millions in grief and disbelief. But to understand the weight of that night, one must look back through Lennon's life. From his working-class roots in Liverpool to the heights of Beatlemania, through his rebellion against convention, and finally, to his tragic end. Lennon's story is not just one of music. It is the tale of a man who challenged authority, broke artistic boundaries, and lived in constant conflict with his own fame. His legacy continues to raise questions about art, celebrity, and the fragile intersection of genius and vulnerability. From Liverpool to the world, 1940 to 1962. John Winston Lennon was born on October 9, 1940, in Liverpool, England, during an air raid in World War II. His father, Alfred Lennon, was a merchant seaman often absent at sea, and his mother, Julia, was lively and musically inclined. John's childhood, however, was marked by instability. His parents separated, and he was largely raised by his aunt, Mimi Smith, who provided discipline but little affection. Music was a constant. John was inspired by the American rock and roll records flooding into post-war Britain. Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, and Buddy Holly became his heroes. In 1956, at age 15, John formed a skiffle group called the Quarrymen, which would eventually evolve into the Beatles. In July 1957, a fateful meeting changed everything. At a church fair, Lennon was introduced to a young Paul McCartney, who impressed him by tuning his guitar and playing 20 Flight Rock by Eddie Cochran. Soon after, McCartney joined the band, bringing along his friend George Harrison. By 1960, the group, now calling themselves the Beatles, included bassist Stuart Sutcliffe and drummer Pete Best. That year, the Beatles went to Hamburg, Germany, where they played marathon sets in nightclubs, honing their sound and stage presence. It was in Hamburg that Lennon's gritty vocal style and sharp wit became defining features of the band. In 1962, with manager Brian Epstein's guidance, Pete Best was replaced by Ringo Starr. The Fab Four was complete. Beatlemania and Artistic Revolution, 1963 to 1966. In 1963, the Beatles released their first album, Please Please Me, recorded in a single day at Abbey Road Studios. Lennon co-wrote most of the songs with McCartney, establishing the legendary Lennon-McCartney partnership. Their music quickly captivated Britain, and by 1964, Beatlemania had crossed the Atlantic. Their appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show drew 73 million viewers, launching the British invasion in America. Lennon became known for his biting humor and rebellious nature. Unlike many pop stars, he was unafraid to provoke. In 1965, the Beatles released Help and Rubber Soul albums that marked their artistic growth, blending folk, rock, and introspection. Lennon's songwriting matured, with tracks like Help and In My Life revealing vulnerability beneath his sharp exterior. Controversy soon followed. In March 1966, Lennon remarked in an interview that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. Though he intended it as social commentary, the quote sparked outrage, especially in the American South, where Beatles records were burned. Lennon apologized, but the incident underscored his role as both provocateur and truth-teller. By 1966, weary of touring and unable to hear themselves over screaming crowds, the Beatles retired from live performances. Their final concert took place at Candlestick Park in San Francisco on August 29, 1966. Lennon later described Beatlemania as a prison, saying, "We were trapped. I don't think the others felt quite as trapped as I did. I was always the one in the spotlight." The studio years and transformation, 1967 to 1970. Freed from touring, the Beatles embarked on a new creative chapter. Lennon, often experimenting with LSD, pushed boundaries in both sound and meaning. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, 1967, revolutionized popular music, with Lennon's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and A Day in the Life epitomizing psychedelic innovation. In August 1967, manager Brian Epstein died of an overdose, leaving the band without direction. Around this time, Lennon grew close to avant-garde artist Yoko Ono, whom he met at an art exhibition in London. Their relationship became both muse and controversy. Many fans blamed Ono for driving a wedge between Lennon and the band, though Lennon himself admitted he had grown restless with the Beatles' image and expectations. In 1968, the band traveled to India to study transcendental meditation with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, though Lennon soon became disillusioned with the guru. The trip, however, inspired prolific songwriting, much of which appeared on the White Album. Lennon's contributions, including Revolution and Happiness is a Warm Gun, reflected his growing political consciousness. By 1969, tensions within the Beatles were high. Lennon privately married Yoko Ono in Gibraltar and staged the famous Bed-Ins for Peace in Amsterdam and Montreal, protesting the Vietnam War. Meanwhile, the Beatles recorded Abbey Road, their final masterpiece as a group. Lennon's Come Together became one of the band's defining tracks. On April 10, 1970, Paul McCartney publicly announced his departure, effectively ending the Beatles. Lennon later remarked, "It was a relief. I couldn't have stuck it out another day." Lennon the Rebel and the Activist, 1970 to 1975. Lennon wasted no time launching his solo career. His 1970 album John Lennon / Plastic Ono Band was raw and confessional, featuring tracks like Mother and Working Class Hero. It revealed Lennon's pain from childhood abandonment and his disdain for societal conformity. In 1971, he released Imagine, whose title track became an anthem of peace. With lyrics envisioning a world without borders or possessions, Imagine solidified Lennon's place as a global voice for change. Now based in New York City, Lennon became deeply involved in leftist activism. He befriended anti-war leaders and openly criticized U.S. involvement in Vietnam. This political engagement drew the attention of the Nixon administration, which sought to deport him. For several years, Lennon battled U.S. immigration authorities, eventually securing permanent residency in 1976. His activism extended to music. Songs like Give Peace a Chance and Power to the People turned him into both artist and agitator. Yet, his personal life was tumultuous. By 1973, Lennon and Ono separated, leading to his so-called Lost Weekend period in Los Angeles, marked by heavy drinking and erratic behavior. Despite this, he released critically acclaimed albums, such as Walls and Bridges, which included the hit Whatever Gets You Through the Night. Return, Renewal, and Assassination, 1976 to 1980. By 1975, Lennon reconciled with Yoko Ono, and in October of that year, their son, Sean, was born. Lennon stepped back from the music industry to focus on family life, retreating from public view for nearly 5 years. In 1980, Lennon returned to the spotlight with Double Fantasy, a collaboration with Ono. Released in November, the album reflected themes of domestic happiness, love, and renewal. Songs like Just Like, Starting Over symbolized a fresh beginning for Lennon, both musically and personally. But that fresh start was cut short. On December 8, 1980, Lennon and Ono returned to the Dakota Apartments after a recording session. Waiting outside was Mark David Chapman, a Disturbed fan who had earlier asked Lennon for an autograph. As Lennon walked toward the entrance, Chapman fired 5 shots, 4 of which struck him in the back. Lennon was rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, but was pronounced dead at 11:15 p.m. News of his assassination spread rapidly. Radio stations across the globe interrupted programming, and fans gathered outside the Dakota, holding vigils and singing his songs through tears. Legacy, lessons, and cultural impact. John Lennon's life and death remain among the most poignant stories in modern history. He was more than a Beatle. He was a cultural force who used his platform to challenge war, prejudice, and conformity. His music, from All You Need Is Love to Imagine, continues to resonate across generations as both art and ideology. His assassination was not only the loss of a beloved artist, but also a sobering reminder of the vulnerability of public figures. Lennon's story forces society to reflect on the dangers of obsession, the cost of fame, and the enduring power of art to inspire change. More than 4 decades later, Lennon's voice has not been silenced. He lives on in every protest chant, in every hopeful verse sung by those who dream of a better world. His vision of peace remains unfinished, a challenge for future generations to carry forward. What does John Lennon's life and untimely death teach us about the intersection of art and activism, the responsibilities of fame, and the fragility of human greatness? Share your thoughts in the comments. Watch more interesting stories. Subscribe to our channel.